Is there an emerging star on the women's soccer team? Will the men's soccer team see a MAC championship? And is the rugby team back on track for a title this year? Stick around for answers, debates, and more, only on Bobcat Breakdown, starting now. Welcome inside Studio 125 for another episode of Bobcat Breakdown. I'm your host, Katie O'Keefe, and we have an exciting show tonight with two experts in Quinnipiac sports, Jonathan Banks and Bryan Schwartz. But Bryan, I heard Jonathan talking smack before. What do you say about that?
Well, you just called me a Quinnipiac sports expert.
So she called me an expert too. We're both experts.
Right,
experts, but who's better?
She called me an expert.
She called me an expert too.
Well, we'll find out later.
We will. So let's get right into it with the women's soccer team. In their 3-0 win against Canisius on Saturday, sophomore midfielder Selena Salas contributed to every goal. Do you think Salas is the most important player on this team? Bryan, what are you thinking?
I think Salas is an extremely important player on this team. She is extremely vital to the Bobcats' success, but I'm going to say that she's not the most important player on this team. And I'm going to go with Megan Phillips, the freshman goalkeeper of the Quinnipiac women's soccer team. And Phillips has been excellent this entire year, taking over for Olivia Majszewski, who's gotten limited playing time this year. And already that shows a ton of confidence that Dave Clark has put into Megan Phillips this season. She's 5-2 in games she started as a freshman. 3 shutouts already, 4 total if you count the one that she only played 80 minutes in. She's been excellent, and in her first MAC game, Canisius isn't very good, but she shut out Canisius in her first MAC game. That's huge, and that's key.
No disrespect to Megan Phillips. She's the future of this team. She's really good, has good fundamentals, good with the ball at her feet. But I was thinking Selena Salas and Kylie Lance were the two options here. And Megan Phillips, to me, think about it. Olivia Majszewski was the starter for 3 years before this. She goes down and isn't playing. Megan Phillips steps in, does a great job. But why is she the most important player when there's not a huge gap between her and Olivia Majszewski? To me, it's a pick-em between the two. Kylie Lance is the leader of a defense who they play 5 at the back, so it's not a lot of midfielders. She has to organize that team, or else they're going to get broken down to the tune of 3 or 4 goals a game. Not only that, Selena Salas is just so good on the ball. She, like Katie said earlier, involved in every single goal. So for me, I don't see how you can call someone the most important player when in reality there's someone who's just as good or just as talented in that same position.
Well, clearly she's the better player in
Not
Megan
necessarily.
Phillips. Well, then why is she playing all these games as a freshman? Why wouldn't you stick to the veteran that's been your goalie for most of the last 3 years?
Does the best player play every single game, especially in non-conference play?
Well, she's played 7 of the games so far they've played.
Yeah, because Olivia Majszewski hasn't been available. And also Charlotte Edmonds, the second string, has not been available either. She started the season at 3rd string, and I don't want to knock her at all because I think she has been really good, and I don't disagree. But she's not the most important player on the team.
The goalkeeper is, you would say, it's one of the most important positions on the team.
One of them, just as important as a midfielder or a center back.
But if you have a bad goalkeeper, there are going to be goals that are let in.
Not necessarily.
And then you're going to lose.
You will lose, but you also lose, someone to score or defend. You can have the best goalkeeper in the world, but if you don't have a good center back to defend and actually let shots come in from 18 yards.
You could say that for every position. It doesn't matter.
Obviously you can.
She has been one of the better players in the conference so far. And
so is Selena Salas. She's the best player in the conference.
I'm not saying Salas hasn't been. I'm saying Megan Phillips is extremely valuable to this team.
She is
and she has played so well that she deserves this award. Katie, back to you.
Hey, I mean, to each his own on who's the most important. But now I'll hand it over to Q30's women's soccer beat reporter Roberto Casillas to break down the team's tactics this year. Have a listen.
This year, the Bobcats have started implementing a new formation. David Clark has changed his style of play a little bit from last year, and it seems to be working so far. The Bobcats are playing a 5-4-1 whenever they're defending, and a 5-2-3 when they're attacking. The back line is probably the most stable part of the formation and has been repeatedly been with the same player since the start of the season. Kylie Lance, the captain of the defense. Mackenzie Tibol and Hannah Ryder are the center backs in the formation. Meanwhile, Kayla Michangos and Katie Schwartz make up the wingbacks for the 5 at the back. This formation is perfect with the quality of midfielders this team has. They can put Selena Salas and Michaela Baileri in the center mid with Flor Cordier or Olivia Scott at the wing. What they've doing lately, they've played Salas and Fleur Courtier in the center mid positions, with Ali Grinstein on the right. She's a rocket on the wing, and Markela Baileri to the left, leaving Olivia Scott to play the false 9 position. That position could also be used by Kelsey Goldring, Gretchen Cron, and the thing is, David Clark used the non-conference slate of games to try out different positions for their different players. They've been all over the field and have experience now in different positions, something that will be very useful for the Bobcats going forward. With nothing else from here in the soccer field, I am Roberto Casillas, women's soccer beat reporter. Back to you at the desk, Bryan and John.
All right, let's bring this back to the debate desk. You guys just heard about this team's new system. Jonathan, do you agree with Roberto on this one?
Whenever Roberto says something, I don't think I've ever disagreed with him.
100%, 100%.
And this is perfectly accurate when he talks about the new system, how they solidify. The defense, he says, is the most solid position. I think that supports my argument before about Kylie Lance, because she marshals that defense. But all in all, the tactics are spot on, and just the depth at forward that he talked about, so many different options to go with. So I don't think you need to repeat what I'm just saying. I think you agree with that.
Yeah, and it showed. They've been successful so far this year, and you hope that that can continue into MAC play.
Absolutely.
Hey, he's a beat reporter for a reason.
Exactly.
But let's talk about some men's soccer. But first, Jonathan and Bryan rallied up a whole Q30 squad over at the Fields the other day, and they're going to give you everything you need to know about the team this year.
Out-of-conference play has come to a close for the Quinnipiac men's soccer team. MAC play begins next Wednesday.
We thought it would be a great time to preview Eric DaCosta's squad, offense, defense, tactics, and anything you can imagine. So we'll get it started with Connor Olathorn.
Thanks, guys. Now with head coach Eric DaCosta, he normally plays a 4-4-2 with Eamon Whalen, usually another striker, usually Roman Danilou, or even Brock Austin up top with him. He'll usually combine the two, playing off each other, with Eamon Whalen usually running towards the goal after laying it back to one of his midfielders or to his strike partner. Now with the defense, with the four-back, usually it's Connor McCoy, Yeppe Hare, or even Henry Wygant as the center backs. Jordan Bennett will push up and allow to keep the wing backs pushed up on the other team and keep them back and pin the offense in their own end. Now with that, we're going to head to goalies with Brian Schwartz.
All right, thanks, Connor. In the goalkeeper position for the Bobcats this season, it's Sharon Mazzola. It was Chrysostomos Yakovides a couple years ago, but Mazzola has taken the goalkeeper position by storm. He's started every game for the Bobcats in goal this year. Last year, he was in the top half of the MAC in almost every category. This year, he's in the top half of the MAC in every single category as a goalkeeper. So for the Bobcats, success, goalkeeping, it all comes together, and that's why they're going to be pretty good in the MAC this year.
Thanks, Brian. We've talked tactics, we've talked goalies. Now let's talk defense. This team last year, the best in the MAC, only allowing 6 goals in 10 games. Good news for Bobcats fans. Most of their starters are returning. Yeppe Hare, Connor McCoy, Jordan Bennett, and they're adding new freshman Henry Wygant, who's played every minute for this Bobcats team. So expect strong things coming from this defense this season. Now we talk defense, let's talk some offense.
We talked about the back line, we talked about goalies, talked about tactics. Now let's get to the offense. Eamon Whalen, reigning MAC Player of the Year, and rightly so. He'll get the goals for the Bobcats. But who else will? Him and Rashawn Daly have been together even before their time at Quinnipiac. So who's going to step up? Roman Danilou and Oriak Villa can get goals from midfield. They each have 2 this year. Thomas Fekula has played a lot up top with Whalen, and he scored last game against Central Connecticut State. So that's a lot of options. Jason Budai and Brock Austin offer a lot of direct attacking options for Quinnipiac. So they have a lot of ways to get goals. It'll really help them in the MAC, and now I'm going to show you how they do it.
Brian, make a save one time, would you? Let's talk about the conference now. It's Fairfield as the front runner after going undefeated all season last season, 8 wins, 2 draws in 10 games. Don't forget that Quinnipiac only finished a point behind the league champions, and this year, though, it's been Iona as the most impressive team, 4 wins in 6 games. As far as going forward is concerned, it's those 3 teams plus Ryder, Fairfield, Quinnipiac, Iona, and Ryder. Any 4 of them can be lifting the trophy at the end. If there's one thing we need to know about this year's conference, it's anyone's game.
Catch that, catch that. There we go. Good hands.
Thank you. Need some gloves next time.
You do need gloves. You know what you also need in your life?
What?
You and I, on the desk right now, going to predict where Quinnipiac finishes in the MAC.
Right now on Bobcat Breakdown.
And here we are at the desk a couple days later. So Jonathan, first, what are your predictions for the MAC?
Brian, in 2016, this team won the conference with an 8-2 record. Last year, they were in second. I think this is the year that they win the MAC again. First place, Eric DaCosta's squad, and I think there are a lot of reasons why. We talk about the miss of Rashawn Daly all the time. He's in the MLS right now. He's scoring goals in the MLS, so that's a huge miss. But Quinnipiac has so much squad depth. They have a staff that pays so much attention to detail, and it's really more about them than what other teams are losing in the MAC. I think their defense looks even stronger. Henry Wygand's played every single minute, and he looks really good, and he's someone that's going to develop to probably a first-team All-MAC talent within the next year or 2 years. He's really good, and they also happen to have the best goal scorer in the entire conference. So I don't see a scenario where they don't finish in the top 2 or 3, but they're going to be winning this MAC conference. Just the MAC, because no MAC conference.
The MAC.
MAC, not MAC.
It's conferences
Yeah,
included.
I got
There
you,
we
I
go.
got you.
I'm putting Quinnipiac in the number 2 spot. Look, I think they could win. I think they could come in 3rd, 4th. I think they can finish anywhere in that top 4. Fairfield and Ryder are 2 also really good teams in this conference. But like we saw with Fairfield the last few years, they're an extremely strong team. They came in 1st in the preseason MAC coaches poll this season. They're bringing back Jonas Vergen and Gordon Bottarelli, the defensive player of the year from last year and the goalkeeper of the year from last year. So these are 2 really important pieces for Fairfield that they're going to bring back, and to face Quinnipiac, they're going to be tough to stop for the Bobcats.
I think the main thing, too, is that's a good point that you brought up, who they have to play against. When you think of Ryder, they're bringing back all the same quality that won the MAC last year, except they are losing Elliot Otmani, who's a graduate transfer from France, who was very good. Then you think about Maris, who's also really good last year. They had Alan Gavilanes, who his freshman year was the MAC Player of the Year. Now, last year had a little bit of an off year, but was still very good. He played over the summer for a Red Bull Academy team, so he has a ton of quality. You can't count out Iona either, who's been really good to start off the season out of conference. So it's all about who they are going to play, but I think they are good enough to win the MAC. It's a question: do they put it together? They have a lot of quality that's better than a lot of teams in the conference.
And I think it's all going to come down to those last 2 games. If you put the schedule back up there, Quinnipiac finishes with Ryder and Fairfield. Those final 2 games could totally decide where they end up in the playoffs, which seed they are. So that could be an extreme factor in what happens.
And they need to be anywhere from 1st to 3rd
Right.
in that position to win the MAC.
Being first would be nice, getting to host it.
That's
again.
what I said. That's not what you said, though.
Now, playoffs for this team aren't in the near future, but we will see how those takes hold up come November. But Bryan, let's talk about right now. Which players on this team make the best defensive formation for the Bobcats?
When talking about the defense for the Bobcats, I wanted to go with a veteran presence for the most part. So for the Bobcats, I went with Yeppe Are, Connor McCoy, as well as Christian Casagrande and Jordan Bennett. Bennett, the only underclassman that I chose, but for McCoy and for Are, they are 2 premier players in the Quinnipiac system and have been for the last 4 years. Christian Casagrande as well, but they were all a part of a really good defensive core last season. And I think that that's what you have to continue to roll with. I know you can say there are others that have even played more this year, and that's fine. I don't really have a strong argument against that because Quinnipiac does have a very good defense overall. You can kind of pick and choose between 5, 6 guys in there, but that's the 4 that I picked.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think there's any problem with your formation, but it's weird how you don't want the guy that's played every single minute. I know Eric DeCosta says will be a staple of this defense for years to come, but I don't want to hate on yours because I have a lot of similar situation. I think Quinnipiac operates best in a 3-back with 2 wingbacks, so call it a back 5 if you will. Doman Bozic, I'm putting at left wingback, but for me to pick him between him and Casagrande, I think Casagrande is a better defender in terms of one-on-one situations, but Bozic is kind of like an old-fashioned midfielder, so you put him anywhere. He can play the ball well, he's good technical ability, and he's a good balance of offense and defense where Casagrande is more defensive-minded, and I think Quinnipiac's a team that can take it to a lot of other MAC teams offensively because of all the talent they have. I have Yeppe Are, and if he's playing Connor McCoy at the center and Henry Wygand, I think that's at least 6'4" for those 3 center backs. That's an insane amount of height that you're going to have to head the ball away. And also on corner kicks or free kicks, you have 3 guys that are so tall, and also Dejan Duric will be in the team to head the ball in the back of the net. And then Jordan Bennett, who I think was phenomenal last year, will be even better this year at the right wing back
That's
spot.
a big thing I wanted to talk about. Connor McCoy, his size back there, that is huge, and that's a guy you need in at all times.
Now, he does make some mistakes on the ball in terms of passing, but I think he'll iron out those situations for when that play comes.
Good debate, guys, but now it's time for our first commercial break, sadly. But when we come back, Jonathan and Bryan talk about the unusual schedule for the field hockey team. Does it work? Keep it here to find out.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average four-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
I'm Jenny Garth, and as a mother of 3, I know kids worry about a lot of things. Getting enough food to eat shouldn't be one of them. But here in America, that is a real worry for 1 in 5 children. This is unacceptable, and something Feeding America is working to solve. Through a nationwide network of food banks, Feeding America serves virtually every community in the United States, including yours. See how you can help your community. Visit feedingamerica.org. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and kissed them all soundly and put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
Less commercials and more debate. We're back and ready to talk some field hockey next. But first, a little background. QU had its first conference game against the toughest matchup the Bobcats face every year, the Yukon Huskies. The Bobcats have never won a game against the Huskies, period. This game, though, happened on Friday, which is only about a third of the way into their season. Bryan, would you rather have this game early in the year, like they just did, or later in the season?
Katie, when I look at this game, I hate to break it to Quinnipiac Field Hockey's program.
Don't say it.
You could just put an L right next to that box score right there before they even play the game. I'm sorry.
Don't do that.
Quinnipiac.
You can build up momentum and have a chance.
Quinnipiac is not at the level of UConn's program yet. I'm going to talk about it later, especially in my final roar, because I love the Quinnipiac Field Hockey program.
Huge field hockey.
I think they have a ton going for them, but it doesn't matter when they play them. They're going to lose anyway. You might as well get it done and then kind of toss it back to the back of your mind and say, all right, now let's go get the rest of the Big East, because we can be competitive with the rest of the Big East. We're not going to be competitive with UConn.
See, I totally get where you're coming from. That's originally what I thought when we were sitting down in the rundown meeting. But as I thought about it more, I like it later because, like you said, there's a chance you're going to lose straight away. But if you string together some momentum, you can beat anybody. In 2017, they go into UConn winning 3 out of 4 games. They only lost 3-1. So there's a chance. I know they've only scored 2 goals against UConn in program history. But my thing is, I'll equate this to your terms. Look at the Mets this year. Would you rather the Mets play the best team in baseball the first half of the year or the second half of the year? Bryan, answer me that question. Would you rather the Mets play a good team the first half or the second half?
Well, if they're in a playoff position the first half, get them done with.
They're playing. Why would you want? What was their record? Hold on, I wrote this down. They were 40-50 the first half of the year. The second half of the year, they were 41-25. You'd rather have them play a good team when they're not as good? Wouldn't you rather have them build momentum and they win 16 games in a row? Why would you?
They're all playing bad teams then. And then they started playing good teams, and they started losing again, so it didn't matter.
Well, it does. It's the same concept. You could play a good team in the midst of an 8 or 9 game winning streak in baseball, and field hockey would be more like a 2 or 3 game winning streak.
But back to Quinnipiac, if you look at them, and if they play UConn late in the season, let's say Quinnipiac is ready to go into the Big East tournament and in the playoffs there, and then they finish the season with a 6-0 loss to UConn, all of that high momentum that they have is crashed and done, and they might lose in the first round.
But you go into that game thinking, wow, we're on a roll, we're making the playoffs, we can win.
But you come out of the game going down.
But you don't know what's going to happen.
But if it does, if they get...
Leicester City won the Premier League. I know you're not as much of a soccer guy. They won it with 5,000 to 1 odds. That's insane. Anything can happen in sports. You know that.
Right, but the higher odds are that they're going to get crushed.
Right, but there's still a chance they can win, so don't just put it up as an L. Don't chalk it up as an L.
Okay.
Like one you just took.
Okay, so then if they get a big win earlier in the year...
And
that sets the momentum for the rest of the year.
I get what you're saying, but I like what I said more.
Fine.
Guys, it's a good debate, but I do have to say, UConn, number 4 in the nation, I mean, that's a pretty tough team. Does it really matter, you think? I don't know. Anyways, the QU Field Hockey team has an interesting schedule to begin with. If you look at it, the games go back and forth between out-of-conference and conference, back and forth, one right after another. Really look at it. Yet, this very untraditional way for seeing a sports schedule here at QU. Jonathan, why do you think QU stacks their schedule like this?
I was actually going through all the schedules and just kind of curious about this because I'm just a curious sports guy. Field hockey is a little different than all the other sports, the way schedules are stacked up. I think they do it, like it's weird because you play a Big East game that matters, and then they're not going to make the NCAA tournament as an at-large. So a lot of the time, it won't necessarily matter what happens in those out-of-conference games. So I think for them, it's best if they play, let's say, 2 Big East games and an out-of-conference game. That way you play 2 really competitive games. Then you kind of, I don't want to call it a break game because you want to win all the games you play. But that way you can get in some of your rotational pieces. Key players can get rest or a few minutes off when those don't matter. And you build those younger players with experience in minutes. So I think a rhythm of competitive games makes the most sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if you're going between an out-of-conference and in-conference, Quinnipiac's not a team that's going to get an at-large bid in the NCAA tournament, like you said. So they're basically playing a meaningful game for the playoffs, an unmeaningful game for the playoffs, a meaningful game for the playoffs, an unmeaningful game for the playoffs. So to have that on-again, off-again type of schedule, it's tough for a team like Quinnipiac that really, when you're playing an out-of-conference team, maybe you don't get up as much for that type of game. It's tough to go about with that schedule and continue momentum throughout the season.
I think either way you look at it, either way you slice it, it's hard to balance because either way Quinnipiac's going to be that team. Are they on the periphery of the Big East playoffs? Are they not going to be? So it's all personal preference. I would like to see a few competitive games they can get up for and build a rhythm for, and then maybe some sort of game that doesn't count as much.
Field hockey's next game is away at Georgetown this Friday at 1 p.m., but you can also catch the team on home turf this Sunday, also at 1. But time for some rugby. The team won their first NIRA game over Notre Dame, and they won big time. 72-20, Bryan. Does this mean rugby's back? Are they ready to win the title this year?
And don't go on quick because I just heard in my ear. We got to hurry this up.
No.
Wow.
It's tough because this Quinnipiac rugby team is a storied program within the last few years in the NIRA, and just this year's not the year, and that's okay. They haven't beaten the really good teams like Harvard and Army. They have another chance against both of them the rest of the season, but when you look at those 2 games, neither of them were close, and if you want to be a championship team, you're going to have to beat teams like that, and they just really weren't able to. Look, if they finish out the rest of the season strong, maybe take 2 of those next 3 games against Harvard, Dartmouth, and Army, yeah, then I'll say they're in contention, but right now I don't think so.
What's their record in games that count?
We'll 1-0 right now.
They're 1-0. So you could argue that, but I just think they lost 57-10 and 49-0. I don't think there's a real chance that they are able to be back, as we said, because Emily Ross, Kafalona Mar, all those players were generational players. They don't have that talent on their roster right now, but I think they will improve upon their 2 performances that they lost big by. So I wouldn't say rugby's necessarily back, but like you said, they can maybe win next game. They'll have a chance to contend a little bit.
All right, and even if they win a game in the NIRA playoffs, that's fine. And coming off the years that they have the last few years to rebound with that, that's still a success.
I mean, great titles come with great expectations. Looking forward to the playoffs for this team. Rugby will face Harvard again this Saturday at noon. One more quick break just to give these guys their singing voices a rest, because Lyrical Genius is up next. Be right back.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average 4-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
Welcome back, and our next segment is Lyrical Genius. I know it's been a while, but our analysts have some song lyrics to describe Quinnipiac volleyball, and it seems like the right time and place considering it's a fun and exciting time for this team. Volleyball started their conference play on Saturday, which turned out to be a loss to Siena 2-3. Then the Bobcats lost again to Marist on Sunday 1-3. Jonathan, what's your song to describe this team's MAC play so far?
Well, first, Katie, why are you making me go first when you know I'm not a good singer? So
Neither am I.
But I'm probably a worse singer. But anyway.
Oh, thank you.
So, first 2 MAC games. I know I was texting you earlier. You're a Chris Daughtry guy. Breakdown Chris Daughtry, his first album. I'll just read these lyrics so I get them right. Well, it's not the time to break up this love. Keep it together now. It's not the time to break. They've lost 2 MAC games. It's a new regime. It's a new era. It's a new season. There's no need to panic. They'll find their groove. There's no time to break up the love and the support they've been having. You saw Katie O'Keefe and Eric Kerr made their packages about the volleyball team. Everything's great there. Keep it together. It's not a time to panic. Don't worry about it.
Well, I basically went the same sort of reasoning as you for why I picked my song, and I went with little T-Swizzle, Taylor Swift. You Need to Calm Down, her new song. It's great. Sorry, you ready? You need to just stop. Can you just not step on my gown? You need to calm down.
Your gown?
Not my gown, maybe a Quinnipiac volleyball player's gown. Look, they lost the first 2 games in conference play. It's okay. Calm down. They're going to be fine. It's a new coach. They're still getting used to everything. And this team is going to be pretty successful in the MAC this year.
Katie, I'm asking you a question I know the answer to, but Chris Daughtry or Taylor Swift?
Taylor Swift.
Come on. What kind of question is that?
I knew what her answer was. I had to ask. I hope I'd get a point for that.
All right, Jonathan, back to you again first for your last lyric. What's your song for a preview of the season?
So this song I think came out when I was in high school, Forever with Drake, Kanye West, Lil Wayne, and Eminem. Everyone who doubted me is asking for forgiveness. If you ain't been a part of it, at least you got to witness.
Good.
Good, right?
Is that an @ to Chris Chaplinsky?
Not at all. Not at all. They've got 5 losses in a row right now, but it's a long season. They'll pick it up, kind of an @ I guess, when you think about their success in past years. But they'll pick up the slack. I think they can get into the MAC tournament, maybe get an upset. If people are doubting and slacking on them now, they'll witness the comeback. I think this team really has big things planned.
I went with Good Vibes by Chris Jansen, a little country action
Of course
here.
you would.
I'm getting them good vibes. I'm living this good life.
Good song, though.
There's great vibes around this team. I mean, me, Katie, and Eric Kerr were all at the practice a couple weeks ago. Everybody seems happy. They're excited. There was great music going in the practice. Kyle Robinson's a great family guy, and they're really building a strong program right now.
I agree, Bryan, but as the show winds down, it's time for our final roars, and we'll hear from Jonathan first. Take it away.
In 2016 and last year, Quinnipiac fell at home to Ryder in the MAC championship game in Hamden. Missed chances were rude, tears were shed, and new motivation was triggered. The Bobcats this year are mixed with international experience, technical ability, but most importantly, the will and talent to get over the hump. Almost every player on the roster would fill a need for another squad in the conference. This year's team has depth, fantastic coaching, who pay attention to detail, and if that doesn't help, the Bobcats have one of the best goal scorers in the entire country leading the line. Eamon Whalen will most likely grab the headlines if Quinnipiac punches their ticket to the big dance, but it'll be a group effort to push Quinnipiac to the promised land.
25 years. 25 years at one job. That's a lot, no less a coaching position. How about building a collegiate field hockey program from the ground up, now seeing the team as a part of one of the premier NCAA conferences in America? Becca Main has taken Quinnipiac field hockey from the depths of Division II to the Big East. It began as a member of the Northeast 10 Coach of the Year, NEC Coach of the Year, MAC Coach of the Year, Big East to be determined. As outstanding an accomplishment it is to be in the Big East, Becca Main would be the first to say that the Bobcats want to go further, making another NCAA tournament and winning games there. The position that Quinnipiac is in right now is a favorable one. No, they aren't beating the top teams in the conference like UConn or the top teams across the country like Stanford, but to even get the opportunities to play those games is leaps and bounds from 25 years back when Becca Main took over. There will be a time for winning the Big East, once for Quinnipiac field hockey, but Bobcat Nation should really celebrate the path that Becca Main has paved over the last 25 years for this program. The Bobcats themselves, just another program at this school that is on the rise nationally.
That's all the time we have for tonight's show, but shout out to all the producers and the crew behind the scenes for making this show happen. Be sure to get all your sports updates on our website at q30tv.com and our Twitter at q30sports. For Jonathan Banks, Bryan Schwartz, and myself, you know the drill. See you here next week, same time, same place.